University in Washington. Welcome to the Politics Hour starring Tom Sherwood. I'm Kojo Namdi. Later in the broadcast, we'll be talking with Dave Albo. He's a member of the Virginia House of Delegates. We'll also be talking with Ward 6 council member from the District of Columbia, Charles Allen. Tom Sherwood is our resident analyst. He's a reporter for NBC4 and a columnist with the current newspapers. Tom, welcome.
Hey, good afternoon.
First up today, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. She joins us by telephone. Mayor Bowser, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Kojo. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hey, Mayor. Can I real quickly just mention something that Charles Allen also was involved? We were down on the waterfront last night at the wharf where the Marty Hoffman and the developers lit up the 14th Street Bridge with new blue lights. It was pretty impressive, right, Mayor?
It was very exciting. Accompanied, I might add, by fireworks, and we got to launch it from the new pier. So it was really exciting.
Bah humbug. The big news of the week, Police Chief Kathy Lanier is stepping down after 26 years on the force and nearly a decade as chief. A lot of time to consider her legacy here. But what will we miss with the departure of Chief Lanier? And what's the public safety priority for you right now as you consider replacing her?
Well, Kathy has been a tremendous asset, Chief Lanier, to the Metropolitan Police Department. So she's a tremendous police leader. She's built a great and professional force, and she really leaves MPD in good hands. Our priorities are always the same. How do we make our neighborhoods just as safe as possible? And we're going to work with our force and leadership to make sure we're doing that.
Well, Mayor, you have two big jobs to fill. The chancellor of the school system, the Chancellor Kaya Henderson is leaving on September 30th. Chief Lanier is leaving, I think, on the 17th. I know you'll do nationwide type searches, but you also will be looking in-house. When Chief Dean was appointed, he said that he would take 6 months to get to know his agency before he made changes. That, of course,
talking about the Chief Dean of the Fire Department.
Chief Gregory Dean of the Fire Department. But obviously, that's not going to. No one's going to have a luxury of coming as school chancellor for 6 months or the police chief for 6 months. What are you thinking as you look to fill both of those jobs?
Well, I don't think either DCPS or MPD had the same set of challenges that we had at FEMS, and so we were definitely looking to make some significant changes at FEMS, and that was my discussion with the fire chief as he was coming in. I think he had exactly the right approach. We have built, in both cases at DCPS and MPD, significant momentum around improvement. So we are drilling down on the things that we know we can do better in DCPS. Part of our search process is checking in with communities. We'll have 3 meetings across the city to do it. And we're going to pick the leader that can build on what we've done with very robust school reform since 2007, but also press down on the areas where we want to see more growth.
Well, can you say whether you will lean towards an in-house candidate more than bringing in a brand new person who would have to have a map to get around town?
I can't say that. I can say that we're going to recruit the right person. I think in both cases we have deep benches, both at DCPS. A lot of people in senior leadership have been there for the course of our school reform efforts. And similarly at MPD, we have a deep bench of talent.
Watching both the school's chancellor and the police chief, both of them fairly popular officials in D.C. leading major agencies, stepping down at the same time. Of course, they've both had fairly long tenures, but some see this as a kind of defining moment in your tenure, having to appoint 2 officials in such close proximity with such short notice. Do you see it in the same way?
Well, some people will remember that I had 54 days to stand up a government just a year and a half ago. And I had the opportunity at that time to change the police chief and change the school's chancellor. And I knew then that they were both not at the beginning of their tenures, but towards the end. I made the decision then that these leaders were tremendous and were doing, a significant job. And if they were going to stick around around for another year and a half, 2 years, that would be the best thing for the District of Columbia. But I always knew that I would be making the decision to find their replacements during my first term.
And politically, it's good that they are making this decision now. I don't think as the elected mayor of the city or any elected official would want people of this stature to leave the job a year from now, just as you'll be gearing up and running for re-election.
Well, I think that they both are kind of at junctures where Kathy was coming up on 10 years as a big city police chief is virtually unheard of. Kaya had either been the deputy chancellor or chancellor, I think, almost as long. So they have accomplished a lot of things, and I think they have both expressed wanting to make room for new talent and ideas, and in some cases, even on their own team.
I want to get to where you are at DCRA in just a moment, but I have one more political question. You have told us, you told me that you're going to run for re-election, and that I just checked the primary is going to be in September of 2018. Do you have some type of timetable when you'll start your campaign and put your committee together?
No.
No, it's just a day from now. It's just time goes by really fast.
Well, no, I don't have a day where we're going to launch. I think that if you've been following how I campaign, I start early and I run hard.
Tom's looking for news here. He mentioned DCRA. You're working out of the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs this week, conducting a week-long review of the operations there. We got a tweet from Andrea who says, tales of at DCRA inspectors being paid off are rife, eroding faith in government and safety. What will change after this DCRA week? Will DCRA Director Bowling hold an interactive roundtable to learn from affected residents?
Well, if Andrea has any evidence of somebody being paid off, which is a very serious allegation, and I take those type of allegations seriously, she should either call our Inspector General, she can let me know, or she can let our Board of Ethics and Government Accountability know. It's not helpful to have kind of unsubstantiated charges, but if there's a real charge, we want to find out, because we don't want anybody on our staff that's doing the wrong thing. So for me, it was a deep dive into some areas that I wanted to focus on, including vacant property and the permitting process, IT issues, communications issues here, to see how we can better serve our residents. I think what I've seen, and I've watched this agency a long time, is that, with a changing city, we have some changed demands on the agency. So we have to do a couple of things. We have to work better with our customers in some cases to educate them about the processes, and we have to do that better. But we also have to adapt in other ways to say, we've done this way for many years, but some things need to change to better serve a changed city. So that's what we're focused on.
Mayor, I have to say that my own son has a business matter before the DCRA, so I'm disclosing that, trying to get a business open. But I've looked at it along with his problems getting there. It just seems that there's no consistency and coordination for whether you're trying to get a homeowner's driveway fixed or whether you're doing a big business, that you can be told one thing one day and another thing the next.
Well, that certainly shouldn't be the case. And part of what we talked about is the homeowner's experience. And we have a whole homeowner center that's focused on people who are doing work, whether it's a driveway, a renovation, an addition, new bathroom, you name it, that they can work directly with DCRA officials to get their permits moving fast.
Well, if you get that agency fixed up, I've seen a number of efforts to fix that agency. If you can get that agency where people are complaining about it less, it will be your biggest achievement.
Well, I'm going to work hard on it. And it is one of those agencies. And one thing I express to the staff, because we have a lot of hardworking people here that come to work every day to do a good job, is that some agencies you're going to get complaints just by the nature of the work, that this is a compliance agency. They're telling them that they have to do something, and they're charging them for the pleasure. And so we have to do better when people are coming down here to spend their time and spend their money to do the right thing. We want to make sure they're being served well.
And I know you have to go, Mayor Bowser, but give me 30 seconds here, because the Department of Justice announced that it'll be ending the use of private prisons, and I know that your contract with the Corrections Corporation of America, which runs the corrections treatment facility, expires in 2017 next year. Are you considering having the city run that facility instead?
Oh, I already announced that, Kojo. I announced that in my State of the District that we will take over full operations of the jail, and that includes the facility, CTF is what we call it, in this fiscal year. I added to the Department of Corrections budget in the fiscal year 2017, which starts in October, the necessary transition funds to do that. So we will take over the operations of the CTF this year.
Tom Sherwood said I wasted your time, so he wants more.
I'm sure you'd like to say something about this. Wegmans is not coming to the Walter Reed redevelopment. I talked to Brian Kenner, your deputy mayor. He says you're going to have a quality grocer there. But is this a setback or a bump in the road?
I don't think it'll be a fantastic grocer at Walter Reed, and Walter Reed will be a premier development in the city. And I don't know that anybody is, I know sometimes when people are negotiating leases, there's posturing going on, so I can't say for sure that that's not the case here.
My neighborhood, I'm keeping it under close surveillance. Mayor Bowser, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Muriel Bowser.
By the way, first day of school is this Monday, so everybody look out for the kids on the way to school.
I think NBC4 is doing backpacks this weekend for kids, so it'll be good.
Thank you.
Muriel Bowser is mayor of the District of Columbia. You're listening to the Politics Hour with Tom Sherwood, our resident analyst. Joining us in studio is Charles Allen, D.C. council member. He's a Democrat representing Ward 6. If you have questions or comments for him, the mayor is now gone. We can't take questions for her anymore.
He can answer for her.
800-433-8850. You can send email to kojo@wamu.org. Shoot us a tweet at Kojo Show, or go to our website, kojoshow.org. Watch the live video stream of this broadcast, or you can submit a question or make a comment right there. Let's start with the sad news. Marion Christopher Barry passed during the course of this past week. He was, of course, the son of the late D.C. Mayor Marion Barry. Tom Sherwood, I know you broke this story, and you have known, as I have, Marion Christopher Barry since he was a child.
Yes, it's very sad. There's a private family service on Sunday night, and then on Monday at the Temple of Praise, 700 Southern Avenue Southeast. The public and family and other friends will be together for a 7 o'clock service that night. It was a sad case, and as I talked to many people, there are many people in this country who struggle with drug addiction and then succumb to it, who die. And this is, I hope, will be a learning experience for others to try to get help, try to get treatment, because not only does the person who's addicted need treatment, but their families need help to get through a terrible situation.
And Charles Allen, no matter what one may think of former Mayor Marion Barry's politics, the fact is that anybody under 40 years old in the city essentially grew up with Marion Barry, as his son Christopher Barry did, and feel that sense of loss. Well,
I think so. And I know when I woke up and read Tom's tweet, it was incredibly sad. This is a young man who, had a lot of hope, had certainly a lot of weight on his shoulders at times, but is somebody that a lot of people were rooting for, wanted to see succeed, and it was really sad to see that loss of life and that he was taken.
He had a good, easygoing nature, similar to his dad. He just couldn't quite get those all together on the same page.
And I think many people who maybe didn't know him as well certainly remember the his words at his father's funeral, which was incredibly powerful.
Speaking both at F.E. Barry's funeral back in 2007 and his father.
Who calls you up when these stories happen? How do you break these stories? Who are your contacts?
Kojo, you would know it since you're not a working journalist. You're a talk show host.
Exactly right.
But, people, you talk to a lot of people over a course of time, and sometimes you'll get the call just out of the blue. someone will tell you, because they've watched your work and they respect your work, and that's how it happens.
Also this week, a judge sentenced Jeffrey Thompson, the DC businessman who was behind the illegal aspects of the Mayor Vincent Gray 2010 campaign. The prosecution asked for home detention only, saying that Jeffrey Thompson had cooperated with them so much. The judge, Colleen Kolar-Catelli, she said, not going to happen here. Sentenced him to 3 months in jail. Does this bring this to an end right now?
Well, there's still a couple more sentences. Jeannie Clark Harris, I think, is still to go. She was the person who participated. But, the judge her hands were tied to a certain degree. She could have given up to 6 months to him in prison. So she get 3 months because she said he was a master conspirator of this. He ran this operation.
Some 28 political campaigns.
Yes, a lot of them, and not just the Vince Gray one. But I remind people, when Marion Barry had that arrest for the drug possession charge, he could have gotten probation, and Judge Penfield Jackson gave him the full 6 months in prison. And so some people say, the judge in fact said, this person admitting guilt and cooperating with prosecutors was not enough, that this person needed to be punished.
I mean, this is a guy who dozens and dozens of candidates tried to meddle with campaigns and elections, tried to erode the public trust, tried to buy seats all over the place.
Not to run.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hard pressed to think of amount of time that would be sufficient. This is somebody who I think did significant damage to the district and to the public trust.
I don't think it helped Jeffrey Thompson that while he was under this couple of years, he was going off, getting permission to go to Jamaica, where he's from, and walking around town and acting as if nothing had gone wrong. And so 3 months might change his mind. Just as Ron Machen, the U.S. attorney, told me once, you spend 1 day in prison, you understand why you don't want to spend 2.
And what's the message sent to politics in D.C. and particularly people who are running for office in D.C., Charles Allen?
Well, I think to me, it's a disappointing sentence. And I agree with you, Tom, that the judge's hands were somewhat tied in terms of what that she could do. But just the fact that he was able to collude and put millions of dollars into campaigns to try to steer, and in many cases was able to impact the outcomes of those elections, and to have 3 months after millions of dollars, he was the mastermind here.
Right.
And you've got a lot of associates of his and folks that he used along the way that are going to have tougher sentences. And so I think a lot of people are pretty frustrated.
And then there's more to his personal life, and it made him an unworthy person to go into court and to testify against others, including Mayor Gray. So the whole thing was an absolute mess.
So I think we just have to, as an elected leader, part of our job is to continue to double down on how we rebuild our public trust in our city.
You're on the council's transportation committee. Yesterday, Metro announced a criminal investigation into the Silver Line derailment on July 29th. It's my understanding that Metro's safety department review found concerning issues that warrant further investigation by Metro Transit Police. This is coming just 2 weeks after a scathing FDA report on Metro safety. Do you have confidence these issues are being addressed as this goes forward?
I do. I mean, it's something we have to keep a very close eye on. I'm somebody who rides Metro pretty much every day. It's how I get to work. I have confidence riding to Metro and getting on there. I would take my wife. I would take my children. I'm confident in that. That said, we have a lot of work to help repair people's confidence in the system citywide and region-wide. And part of what I'm also frustrated with is when I see comments, for example, from the FDA who kind of threaten and say, well, we've got the power to just shut you down. Well, that's great, and I appreciate it. Maybe they do. But I would much rather also have the FDA say, we've also got the power to help. We've got the power to help make sure that you've got the infrastructure, you've got the resources you need. I think we need a little bit more of that than let's just try to shut you down.
They're adjusting management with their heavy hand, and people believe, rightly so, a heavy hand. But politically, the city, Maryland, Virginia, have gotten to get the federal government on board for operating this system. I mean, we can have all the outrage we want from the Secretary of Transportation or the FTA and that, but where is let's pull together on this train?
Yeah, they've got to see themselves as a partner. They've got to see themselves as
But they say they don't subsidize the operations of any other mass
well,
transit system.
they're the customer of Metro, whether they like it or not.
You know,
And so
I've
they're
said
gonna
on this
have to be
program
able
we
to
should
use it.
just shut down Metro the week of the inauguration and let them see how much it's important to have federal people riding around on the system.
Maybe Ted Cruz is misguided. Maybe he should have just focused on shutting down Metro.
I'm going to the phone. Here's Zachary in Woodley Park. Zachary, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Councilmember Allen. And I just want to point out I'm also a former resident of Ward 6, but I reside in Woodley Park now. And
I'm sorry to lose you from Ward 6, Zachary.
Come back.
Oh, yeah. Well, I lived in Southwest for almost a year, and then
Tom Showers got your apartment.
This is a very bad trajectory for you. You're already going downhill.
But Councilmember, my question for you has to do with ethics in the City Council, and I know Councilmember Grosso has been a big proponent of ending the practice of the council approving individual contracts with the city government, and to my knowledge, he's abstained from voting on any of those contracts. So I was wondering what your views were on that, on ending that practice with the City Council, and just any broader ethics reforms with the City Council, especially in light of Councilmember Orange resigning last week.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Zachary. There is a lot of work to do. Part of what I've focused on a lot has to do with campaign finance reform, and we've got a lot of legislation that's pending, as well as electoral reform, the way in which people qualify for ballots, get on the ballots, conduct our elections. Specifically, when you're talking about the issues around outside employment, I've been on the record saying I don't think you should have outside employment. I think this is a full-time job. When you speak about the issue with Mr. Orange, but when you talk about the contracts, this is something that has definitely been a bit of a learning experience for me as well. I had started with the position of saying that we should not be approving any contracts of the council. And I'll give you an example of a place where the news today, we were talking earlier, the Department of Justice saying they're going to be not doing any private prisons and jails. We had one of the first things that came up to the council when I got elected was a contract to outsource and to privatize our jail services here in the district. And it was the wrong decision. It absolutely was. It costs more. It's worse for the inmates. It's worse for the employees. It's bad for the city. And we had to vote on a contract. And I really wrestled with that because I had thought we shouldn't be voting on contracts. It invites so much opportunity to meddle. And I ultimately, though, felt like this was such a big decision, I decided to vote on the contract and vote against it. And the contract was voted down by one vote. And as you heard the mayor earlier say that now the city is going to be taking over CTF, we're going to be having, I think, a real move and a sea change in how we are looking at jail services. And we wouldn't be able to do that without voting on a contract.
The short history of this is back in the early 90s, John Wilson, the council chairman, was outraged at Sharon Pratt Kelly's granting of contracts, and he got the council to pass a law that allowed anything over $1 million had to be reviewed by the council. The problem was then developers and people who want those contracts felt like they had to contribute to the council members. The fix of that is to deny city contractors, anybody with business before the city, from contributing to your campaign coffers. Well, and you get the best of both worlds. You get to review the contracts.
Exactly. And that is a great point because we actually had that vote in front of us, not but about a month ago, and we lost that by one vote. And I can tell you, based on the election results from the primary, I know that that's a vote that we're going to be able to win next council period. So I think that's something we're going to be able to achieve. And that gets at a big heart of it. When you've got a big business, whether it's a developer, a contractor, who can give money to a sitting elected official for their constituent services fund or for their campaign or reelection campaign, that creates a problem. It creates and invites mischief. And that's part of what we're going to be trying to shut down.
And if that law passes, that's going to significantly change the 2018 mayor's race.
Well, you also mentioned you oppose council members in D.C. holding second jobs, but Ward 2 council member Jack Evans reminded us the last time he was here, or we spoke to him about this, that's really the norm around the country with part-time councils. Are the ethics rules around conflict of interest clear enough, do you think?
Well, I think that when you look at the history of other elected officials, the DC council is very different. We are a state legislature, we are a county commission, we are a city council, all wrapped up into one. We're not Texas, where we come together once every 2 years and meet. We're not Maryland, where we get together for a 60-day session. We meet year round. We work year round. So I don't think that's a fair comparison. I think this is a full-time job, and I know it demands my full attention.
It's a $13 billion business. Do you think you should be paid more?
I'm quite comfortable with where our salaries are. I think that
I knew you would not say yes to that question. I don't know why I wasted time asking it.
I'm comfortable with where we are, Tom.
You serve on the Committee on Business, Consumer, and Regulatory Affairs. What do you think of what we just heard about Mayor Bowser's review of the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs, given that department's reputation?
Well, I'm glad she's kind of almost camped out there for a whole week, spending her time there. I think that's the right decision. I was really glad to hear her say, in particular, she used the word customers, and that's something I've talked about in our oversight hearings. The DCRA's got to know who their customer is. Their customer is not just the contractor. The customer is the resident. The customer it's consumer protection. That's part of what that agency does, and it feels a bit like some of that mission is not prioritized and bring the urgency that we need. I think of it like the DMV a little bit. No one really wants to go to the DMV, but by and large, the reforms that Ms. Babers and others have helped bring there, you have a good experience and you get out the door. That's not the case at DCRA right now. That's where we got to go.
Well, one of the issues, Vincent Orange left the council awkwardly, let's just say it that way. He was a chairman of the committee. You're on the committee that oversees, I think, DCRA, 34 different agencies. Work has to be done. What is the chairman, Mendelson, doing, and you and the other council members doing to make sure that nothing gets dropped between now and January 2nd when the chairman...
What happens to the Committee on Business, Consumer, and Regulatory Affairs?
Well, it's a great question. I have had conversations with Chairman Mendelson about this, and obviously he's going to make up his mind and come up with some decisions around it. Earlier, I think the inclination from some was that the committee needs to go into the committee of the whole. That was one way to help remove a conflict with then Councilmember Orange. I think the chairman's got a couple of different options in front of him, whether that's appointing somebody else to chair that committee for the last 4 months or so of the council period, whether that is breaking it up into different areas and having, the committee members are all first term. So Councilmember Silverman, Councilmember Nadeau, Councilmember Todd, myself, we're all in our first term. And so it could be the type of thing where each of us wants to work on a different portfolio for the next couple of months.
Well, there's a lot of legislation before the council, including work scheduling legislation. Vincent Orange was initially a prime mover of that legislation. He withdrew it from full council vote in June. Businesses oppose it. Will the council take it up again in September? And if so, what's likely to be its fate?
I don't know. That's part of what we're going to have to let the chairman help figure out how he wants to structure.
Paid family leave.
Paid family leave, same thing.
And now that one's coming through the committee of the whole, not this committee.
So but these issues are coming up. And
yes, and family leave is a priority. That's something that's really important to me, and I think to our entire city. And so are
you stuck on 16 weeks of paid family leave?
No, to me, I'm not stuck on the 16 weeks. What I'm stuck on is making sure that we've got a quality program that's going to work, and make sure that it helps our employees and helps our residents.
I can tell you, yesterday I spoke to the national press person for Wegmans, the store that has pulled out of the Walter Reed deal, and she told me that one of the issues, she said it was an issue, but there were other issues in terms of space and all of that. She said one of the issues, in fact, was the council passing a $15 minimum wage, poised to pass paid family leave as much as 16 weeks, legislation to restrict part-time assignment schedules for workers and paying workers more if you change their schedules. She acknowledged that all those things are not what she said business friendly. Mayor Bowser has a committee looking at that now with labor and business. It does seem that those could be issues for the city that tries to keep growing as it is.
Well, I'm sensitive to the fact that we need to be smart with our businesses so that as we make progressive change, that it is good for business, the businesses succeed. Nobody wants to see a business fail. I think a lot of these policies actually are good for business as well. I think that when employees have family leave, I think that they're happier employees, they're more dedicated, more loyal employees. I think it's good for the workforce. But I am aware of the fact that when you have a lot of factors come in at one time, it does have business get nervous, be anxious, but they should also be at the table. They need to be able to be a full partner in helping craft these things. And you'd be surprised how many businesses actually understand these are good things for business and for their bottom line and want to be part of the solutions.
I'm predicting paid family leave will be 8 weeks like it is for the district government.
Is 12th and K Northeast in your ward, Ward 6?
12th and K Northeast?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Well,
as you know, Ward 6 is the only.
What is this?
We got an email from Catherine who said, given the severe underfunding of maintenance accounts for public housing, how soon will the roof of the Hopkins subsidized apartments be repaired? That's the roof that blew off during the rainstorm.
Right, and that's southeast. So I was on the phone actually earlier today with the resident council president, Gloria Matthews. Some of the residents have been able to move back in today. DC Housing put those families up at the Capitol Skyline Hotel just a couple of blocks away. We've been making sure they're getting food. With the damage that was done to the units, a lot of them also lost their groceries with electricity going out. So we're working to make sure they've got a voucher and some resources to be able to replenish the refrigerator and get their groceries. And so I believe that they're making emergency repairs again today with the hopes that the last families will move back into their units either later today or over the weekend. And I will say, for anybody who's interested in helping out that community, certainly tomorrow afternoon is a back to school event right across the street from Hopkins, basically at 12th and Potomac, 12th and K Southeast in the park there, for anybody who'd like to come help support those
I'm glad
families.
you mentioned back to schools because you're a member of the Committee on Education. Final question. We're running out of time. With Schools Chancellor Kaya Henderson stepping down, what are the most important issues you think facing DCPS right now?
Well, I know that in Ward 6, one of the things that we have seen is a huge growth in the families that are choosing DC Public Schools through elementary school, where I continue to hear families focus their concern is around their middle school choices. And we've made huge investments in high school. One of the things I've constantly talked about is that we can put all the investment we want in high school. If you can't show families the pathway to get there, if you can't get them through those middle years, it almost doesn't matter.
Mayor Bowser said, Alice Deal for all 8 wards. Middle schools would be a priority. People are saying they don't see enough fast enough progress here.
Just yesterday, I was walking through Elliott Hine Middle School, checking on its readiness. And that's a middle school. We got a brand new science lab. Looks fantastic. That's a science lab that's going to rival anything. But it's a school that we have got to get fully modernized, just like we've got to get Jefferson modernized, just like we've got to get Shaw Middle School modernized. Stuart Hobson just got modernized. We have a lot of work that continues to make sure that parents feel they've got confidence that they can see themselves in DCPS from pre-K 3 all the way until you graduate.
Or they go to charter schools, or they move.
Charles Allen is a DC council member. He's a Democrat representing Ward 6. We discovered today that you are really Charles Allen Jr. When Tom and I met a Charles Allen that we could really vote for. That would happen to be.
That's right. But he has that kind of that Birmingham Southern accent that I'm not sure, with Southern accent myself, I noticed it right away.
Charles Allen Sr.
That's right. He's here to see his grandson. My wife and I welcomed our son Everett into the world 1 month ago today.
And tell him he's welcome to stay as long as he wants to and run for office if necessary.
And how long is the beard going to stay? I keep telling people beards are over.
Well, I decided to grow a paternity beard, and we'll see if it sticks around.
Thank you so much for joining us, Charles.
Thank you both so much.
Tom Sherwood, 3 employees of the DC Postal Service, 1 a manager, 2 mail carriers, are being arrested because it found out that it's been discovered after investigation that they've apparently been in the business of not only getting packages of marijuana, but delivering them and apparently being paid for delivering them. And some people would say, well, isn't marijuana legal in DC and can't you send them through the U.S. Postal Service? No, well, I don't think so.
And even if it were legal, I don't think it'd be legal to be doing that while you're actually doing your job. Because the District of Columbia is the nation's capital, and there's a lot of federal land. It is complicated. Apart from people, illegally doing marijuana, it's that whether you're on federal property, you can be on the sidewalk and be on federal property. You can be on the street and be in the city property. DuPont Circle is Park Service property. So I just urge people, whoever is using marijuana legally, make sure you're in the right spot. Otherwise, you face criminal charges and certainly don't engage in conspiracies like these guys apparently did.
Dave Albo joins us in studio. He's a member of the Virginia House of Delegates. He's a Republican representing the 42nd District, which includes Springfield in Fairfax County. If you have questions or comments for him, call us now at 800-433-8850. Delegate Albo, good to see you again.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me again.
Can we go right to the presidential race with this Republican?
I know that's what you want to do. Go ahead.
Donald Trump's going to be in Fredericksburg tomorrow. I have to work. I have to drive down there. I've got to be in place for 3 o'clock for a 6 o'clock appearance, and he's going to speak at 7, I think. Are you going to be there? Can I interview you down there?
No, I don't. I have my own problems in Springfield, Virginia to deal with, so I don't travel for political events.
He's broken up. He's not. Here's the key thing. Hillary Clinton has pulled her ads out of Virginia because she is confident with the recent polling showing her up significantly. This week, Donald Trump's campaign has started ads today in 4 states. It has skipped Virginia. Do you think the race is over in Virginia?
Well, that would imply that he's gotten polling data that says not to spend money in Virginia. So, I mean, I haven't done any polling myself. I tell people, when the Redskins spent 2 first-round draft picks to pick RG3, I thought, I don't think that's a really good idea, but I'm not quitting being a Redskin fan. So I'm still a Republican fan. I like a lot of things that Donald Trump stands for. I wish we had a different nominee, but I'm on the team. So
you will be supporting your party's nominee.
You didn't go to the
Yes, sir.
convention, right?
I did not go. I've never been to a convention before.
Well,
I have a job.
Who did you support? Who did you support?
I was originally Carly Fiorina. She lives in my district. I know her personally. And then I was a John Kasich guy.
All right, let's get to your issues. Traffic and transportation continue to be a major challenge in Fairfax County and Northern Virginia in general. A number of highway projects are in progress, including the widening of the Beltway I-95, I-395. But there are challenges and debates. For example, in widening I-395, VDOT has proposed converting the HOV lanes into HOT lanes, hot lanes, high occupancy toll lanes. Where do you stand on that?
Well, that's an interesting question because I'm totally against it. The Beltway hot lanes worked really great because we added capacity. So if someone wanted to take the existing lanes and drive for free, we didn't take anything away from them. You can always drive in what you've always been able to. But if you want to pay and you're non-HOV, you can take the hot lanes. That didn't seem to cause much controversy. The problem with the hot lanes proposal the governor's got now, from Edsel Road to Washington, D.C., he's taking existing HOV and he's turning them into hot lanes. And so all my constituents who used to wait to 6:30 to drive from D.C. back to Springfield are now going to have to pay. I put a bill in to stop the plan. I got 0 votes. And I haven't heard much about it, but that's the way politics works. But as soon as people have to start paying for something they used to be for free, they are going to freak out.
800-433-8850. That's the number to call to freak out if you want to. Or you can send an email to kojo@wamu.org. Widening Route 1, also on the agenda. Where does that stand?
Oh, it's at Dan Stork. He's the supervisor for Mount Vernon. He just showed me a map of not only the widening efforts, but also running BRT from Alexandria down to Mount Vernon Highway. Route 1 is a underutilized area. I guess when I got here in 1970 when I was a kid, I imagine that Route 1 used to be
Was the road.
Was the road, right? And now it's kind of been forgotten, I guess. And so their efforts to really improve it, I'm really actually impressed with what Dan has really done. Scott Surville also trying to get that revitalized.
People think I was crazy, but on my staycation recently, about 2 weeks ago, I purposely drove down the George Washington Parkway to Mount Vernon, had lunch there at the little tavern, but then I drove down US 1. So I wanted to see it. And there's huge construction going on at US 1. And then I came back up to 95. And it just reminded me again how horrible that there doesn't seem to be a unified way of actually getting people to move around Northern Virginia. And while the governor has done some things that sound like they're going to help with I-66, this plan for the hot lanes, it just sounds like it's going to be more mess. Well, you also can't funnel all those people into the district in any kind of reasonable way.
Well, one of the disadvantages of having a decent economy, it's not as good as it was before, is that you have jobs. And you could be in a worse situation. You could be Danville. There's no traffic there. There's also no place to work. So I try to remind people that I know it's frustrating, but the reason that we have traffic is because you have a place to drive to.
Well, let's get into the weeds for a second here on transportation.
Marijuana?
No. You wrote something known as kill switch legislation for transportation money. What the heck is that? Well,
when we had a situation in 2013 when the General Assembly had to raise taxes to build roads, had to do it. I was not willing to raise taxes and have it sent to Southern Virginia. No way, no way, no way. And the deal we made was that if we're going to do it in Northern Virginia, 100% of the money has to stay in Northern Virginia. So how do you make sure that happens? Because the budget overrides everything. So what we invented, is my idea, and Tom Rust and some others, was what we call the kill switch. And the kill switch says that the millisecond any of that money is spent outside Northern Virginia, all the revenue sources die. So the whole thing is repealed automatically. And it actually worked. I'm not Nostradamus. I knew it was coming. The next year, General Assembly came, a bunch of Southern Virginia guys tried to come and take our money. And I had to say, read the fine print. If you do this, the whole thing blows up. And it worked. And so now we've got $400 million a year from the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority that is doing a lot of things, including building that Route 28, Route 66 interchange and rolling road in my district. It was in the 1600s. It was a 2-lane road to roll tobacco from Springfield, Virginia down to Old Colchester Road in Mason Neck. It's still 2 lanes, but we're getting it widened.
It's the politics of transportation are endless. There was a big issue this week. Governor Bob McDonnell wasn't big. The Washington Post did a poll that said that, and I'll bring him up and thought about it because he actually worked on transportation issues for Northern Virginia, even though he was from a different part of the state in Tidewater area. The poll said that 67% of the Virginians thought that Bob McDonnell should not try to restart his political career. The poll included 60% of the Republicans in Virginia. Where are you on that?
Well, and Bob's a very good friend of mine. I love the guy, and I've often said that if something bad happened to my wife and I, and he wanted to take care of my kid, I'd do it. That's how highly I respect him. But everybody makes mistakes. I think what he did was stupid, unethical, totally ridiculous, and the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It was not illegal, in my opinion, because he never gave the person anything. The guy never.
You agree with the Supreme Court? Every
single one. 100% of the Supreme Court said it wasn't illegal too. Now, was it stupid? I bet you 100% of the Supreme Court would say it's stupid. I just don't think that Bob should, go to private life. That's what this has all been about anyways.
Chief Justice Roberts, actually, in his opinions, reference, we're not making a judgment here on whether it was, something you should do or not do. It's just whether it was illegal.
Exactly. Are you encouraging him to apply to babysit your kids?
No, if he wants to come up anytime, he can come.
What do you think his role is? I mean, again, the Republican Party is trying to get itself together. John Whitbeck, the chairman from Loudoun County, you go to the page and it shows statewide 0 for 3. All 3 statewide offices are held by Democrats. You've got a big election going next year. You've got to somehow get through this presidential election and get people fired up for next year. Where do you think, can Bob McDonnell play a role in that, or do you think he should remain on the sidelines?
Well, I think Bob should remain on the sidelines, but we got a guy named Ed Gillespie who's running, who I'm very impressed with. He's a Northern Virginia guy, and he has the same talents that Bob had to win election, and that is that he's a Republican, but he talks about how we can solve people's real problems. I mean, every time I knock on doors, no one talks to me about abortion or guns. They say, how come my kid can't get into UVA? How come my street's not repaved? Those are the things that Bob concentrated on when he ran, and that's why he won, and I think Ed will do the same.
Back to Robert dropped off, so we're not going to go back to transportation. But you chair the Judiciary Committee in the House of Delegates. Last week, Virginia election officials said they'd reveal the names of 13,000 felons who had regained and then lost their right to vote after Governor McAuliffe's moves, restoring rights in a blanket order, was struck down by Virginia Supreme Court. Where do you stand on that, and do you think it'll make a difference in Virginia come November?
Well, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm pretty sure most Republicans would agree with me that there is a process to allow people to get their rights back, and there are people who deserve to have their rights back. We've often said if you paid your debt to society, maybe you should be able to get your rights back. But debt to society is not just doing your prison time. Debt to society is giving back more than what you took. So what Bob McDonnell used to do is he said, if you're nonviolent, if you finished your time, if you finished your probation, if you've paid all restitution, and if you've done community service, then I will consider giving your rights back. I think that's the proper standard. The problem we had with McAuliffe's move was he took 206,000 people, didn't look at a single file, and just signed and said everybody gets their rights back. And that includes, literally, it includes people who are convicted of rape, murder, embezzlement,
but crimes of violence,
child molesters.
Is the law? What is the law for the? I understand the politics of it, but what is the law for this? Is it the governor who can require the things you just enumerated with Governor McDonnell, or is it in McDonnell can? I mean, who makes the decision on what you have to do? Is that a governor's decision, or is it laid out in the law that this is what you can do to get your rights back, or is it just a crapshoot?
Yeah, well, I don't want to make it the politics of snooze hour, but so I'll try to make it short. There's basically a conflicting laws. The law that Governor McAuliffe says is on the Constitution that says he can give back people's rights and pardon them. There's another law in the code that says that if you're convicted of a felony, you lose your right to own a firearm, possess a firearm, or vote. McAuliffe said that his constitutional right trumps the code, we said that you can't just repeal a law. So what we were arguing is you have the right, but you have to do it individually. Now, does the Constitution give him any criteria? No, he can do whatever he wants.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Well, Tom said he understood the politics of it. You said that most Republicans will agree with you. Some of our listeners may not understand why there is a partisan divide over this issue.
Boy, I've never thought about that, but you're right. It just seems like the Republicans are one side and the Democrats on the other. I bet you if you had a Democrat friend here in this seat, they probably would say that they don't think child molesters should get their rights back. There's probably a lot more common ground if, we had a get smart cone of silence and, the press couldn't find out what everybody's saying. Probably everybody would agree. Yeah, you know what? Property crimes, get your rights back. Molesting children, no.
We got a caller who couldn't stay on the line, Nick from Fairfax, who says, we approved $1 million worth of bike infrastructure in Fairfax, but I don't see much improvement. Where did the money go?
That's probably a Fairfax County project, so I can tell you that I'm not too up on that. On the Rolling Road project, though, that's one of the controversies. The bike people want a bike lane, and the people who live on Rolling Road don't want their front lawn clipped for a bike lane. So they're pretty controversial.
Well, do you see bikes as an alternative form of transportation? In the city, we've had this debate, and now bikes have now joined the mainstream because it's a much more concise area. But is bicycling something that you think is a serious matter for transportation?
Well, my law partner will kill me because he rides his bike every day to the law office, but I don't see it as a legitimate means of commuting in my area of suburbia. When you get into Falls Church, where Dave lives, my law partner, or DC, it certainly is a legitimate means of commuting. If you are to ride your bicycle up Keene Mill Road to get to work, you are going to die.
And it's really tough out there in the roadways.
There's been a lot of news in this week about polls in Virginia. Well, first of all, there are so many of them emanating from Virginia. How much stock do you put in polls?
Well, I used to do a lot of polling in campaigns, and they were super accurate. I mean, my pollster used to nail things within 0.5%. As time has gone on, though, no one answers their home phone. If they do answer the home phone, they tend to be older. You can't get people's cell phones. So a lot of us are starting to lose confidence in traditional phone polling. So I'm not quite sure I put the same weight into them as I used to.
Polls at the moment are showing a Virginia that looks a lot less like a battleground state and more like a blue state. Is that specifically about your candidate, or is it the inevitable result of shifting demographics as urban, liberal, northern Virginia grows?
Well, you look at any place in the United States, in urban areas, they vote Democrat. And from the time that I grew up in 1970 in Springfield, where we were the edge of civilization, and now it goes all the way to Fredericksburg and all the way out to Warrenton, it's obvious that even Northern Virginia is urbanizing. We have 1.2 million people in Fairfax alone. That's about 14% of the population. As places urbanize, they tend to go Democrat.
Tom Davis says that it has more in common with New Jersey than it does with Chesapeake and the rest of the state.
I would agree with Tom. I mean, if people want stuff from government, they generally are not going to vote Republican because we don't give people stuff. We give people opportunity. And it seems
that sounds like a campaign speech.
Yeah, well, I believe it,
pretty
though.
Good.
I believe it, though.
You're not the party of big business?
I'm the party of people who want to make money so they can provide people jobs. I wish I was big business. I've got 10 employees. I think all my employees are happy that they've got a job and we give them paychecks.
Okay, here's another non-controversial issue. The governor's trying to get the state to go along with getting the Washington Redskins team to Loudoun County. If not Loudoun County, somewhere in Northern Virginia. What do you think about that?
Well, if the deal is for the taxpayers to spend money on a stadium, no way, no way, no way, no way, it'll never happen. It's dead before it even gets out of committee.
Make the land available and the owner builds the stadium?
Sure. And anything that does not involve the taxpayers paying for a Redskins stadium has, we should look at. I'd love to have the Redskins. My wife is the #1 Redskin fan. I'd be very popular at home.
People have pointed out that the Republican nominee's message, and you mentioned jobs, about unemployment, the loss of manufacturing jobs, tend to fall flat in Northern Virginia, where schools, roads, and other issues are more important to people. Would you agree?
Well, it's because we have a very low unemployment rate. I mean, the one thing, though, that we have found is that people aren't making as much money as they used to. So people have jobs. but the money's not there. All my friends who do government contracting used to get billed out at $62 an hour. Now they're doing computer programming consulting for $47. So for me, I don't feel like my constituents are concerned about employment as much as they're concerned about the quality of employment and wage rates.
Do you support raising the minimum wage? Its federal rate is $7.25. Virginia sticks to the federal rate. Would you see raising it? It's going to be $15 in the district.
I do it by zones. When I hire young people to help me in the summer, I have to pay them $12 or $15, just because if you want to get quality young people, you have to pay that. So,
market rate.
Yeah, market rate. So I have to pay that in Northern Virginia. I don't think raising the minimum wage in Northern Virginia would hurt the economy. I can tell you, though, that I really believe that in Wise County and in Galax, if you made $15 the going rate at McDonald's, no one's going to be able.
Those are very small places.
Yeah, no one's going to be able to afford the hamburger. So it probably should be done in different zones where it makes sense.
Don't have a lot of time left, but nearby Fairfax City's mayor has resigned after a sex and drugs scandal. A lot of people didn't even realize there was a Fairfax City with a mayor, but that's the case. The city council held a special meeting this week, appointed an interim mayor, but only after closed-door discussions that frustrated many people. They said there was a lack of transparency. What do you make of the events happening in Fairfax
Well, first
City?
of all, Scott, if you knew him, Scott Silverthorne is a great guy.
That's what everybody
I was
says.
Totally shocked by it. But if you ever want to tell people a story about the evils of drugs, this is a perfect example of what meth can do for you. As far as doing closed-door meetings, I have no idea why they're doing that. It's probably a total violation of the
Do we have a
law.
quick moment just on opioid?
You only got about 10 seconds.
Brian Moran was here talking about it last week. It's moved from the inner city to the suburbs.
Absolutely. I have a lot of my clients who've come to me possession of heroin, opioids, and stuff. It is an exploding problem in Northern Virginia.
So all the time we have Dave Albo is a member of the Virginia House of Delegates. He's a Republican representing the 42nd District, which includes Springfield and Fairfax County. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
joining
gentlemen.
us. That's it for the show today, but there's always more online and in-person. Mark your calendars for this coming Monday. Ruth Tam, producer for this show, will be talking to author Elizabeth Cobbs about her new novel, The Hamilton Affair. That's coming up on Monday at Politics and Prose on Connecticut Avenue. Time, 7 p.m. Don't miss it. Stay cool this weekend. Catch up on any shows you've missed by subscribing to the broadcast via your favorite podcast app. However you listen, be sure to meet us back here Monday at noon. You may recall the Kojo team visited Haiti after the earthquake and during the subsequent cholera epidemic. Top UN officials now admit responsibility for the outbreak. We explore what it means for Haitians at home and here in the diaspora. Plus, we speak with Montgomery County officials about the challenges in responding to a deadly building explosion in Silver Spring. That's all coming up Monday at noon. Tom Sherwood, you have a great weekend. You're working tomorrow.
I'm going to the Trump rally down in Fredericksburg. Come up and say hello to me.
He doesn't work during the week. He works only on weekends. Thank you all for listening.
All the time.
I'm Kojo Nahamni.